instead of using it for cognitive purposes. And when you really learn, you want to make sure you're using learning cognitively. And what else I really like is that her framework is easy to use. And it teaches you how to engage, enhance, and extend learning outside the classroom. So let us go ahead and get started on this. So the question for you, and I don't know, I know that there are people on site, face-to-face, person-to-person, and there's also people online. Is that correct? Is there an audience in the room that there are people watching? Yes? Okay, so I kind of want to talk about what you feel like is learning. Is it look like A or B? If you have a chat pod, would you put in whether you think it's A or B into the chat box so I can see what you think? What is learning to you? Does it look more like A or does it look more like B?
B, totally B.
B, everybody's saying B. Okay, yeah, exactly. So so let's go on, right? Everybody's saying B. Okay, great. So when you look at, let me go back again. When you say that learning looks like B, if you pick the SAMR framework, which is very linear, you're picking A, even though you said just B right now. A lot of people know this framework. It is very, very linear, like A. And it shows that you have to go from substitution to redefinition. And it looks to me like you should start at the bottom and move your way up to the top. But learning is not so simple. Learning doesn't start, sometimes you need substitution. Sometimes substitution is absolutely required. So this is very linear and doesn't really show. And another thing it does, it shows you how to teach necessarily, but not how students learn. So now we look at this one, which is the TPAC. I'm sure some of you are familiar with this framework. It looks really complicated just from looking at it. However, it is nonlinear. And as we said back here, when we looked at the how learning works, hold on a second here. Learning is messy. Learning looks like this. And you can see that the TPAC one, although extremely complicated looking, actually looks a little bit more like we actually learn. So the EEE framework took the best parts of this framework, the TPAC, and developed something much more simple to use. And this is what the EEE framework looks like. Again, you can see that it has the 3 circles and we have the middle, which is what we call the sweet spot. But you have 3 things that you need to make sure that your technology is doing. Number 1, that it's engaging the learner. And engagement doesn't just mean time on task. A lot of people think you give a student a computer or you let them use their phone and they're engaged because their face is in the screen. But it also requires co-use, and this is critical. If you don't have your students talk to each other while they're on the computer or on the screen, they're not getting any co-use and they're really not learning to the extent that they could. And the third one is that the technology tool must represent what your learning goals are. So that's number 1, engagement. That's the first E of our EEE. The second E is enhancement. And enhancement is when you give students added value. So when they use the technology, maybe they're researching something that they can also research more than they can if they just had a book in front of them. So you want to make sure you have added value. You want to make sure you have scaffolds. Not all students learn the same way. And so the technology tool itself should be able to scaffold. And the third thing is everybody learns differently. And so you need to be able to differentiate and personalize your learning. And there are many tools that can do that. That's the second E, enhancement. Now we're on to the third E, which is extension. And this is where we have students have used the technology tool for authentic experiences. So perhaps if you're teaching them to use something in class, maybe they take it home and they use it for other classes, or maybe they use it with their family because they're actually connecting the tool with the experience of life. It helps them learn 24/7. They don't have to be in the classroom to do the learning. And it gives them the soft skills necessary to be able to have a job. So these are the 3 E's: engagement, enhancement, and extension. And I'm going to go dive deeper into each E now with you. So the first one is called engagement. So we have some questions to ask yourself when you're using technology to make sure that it engages the student. Does the technology allow students to focus on the task of the assignment or activity with less distraction, time on task? Now, I know that sometimes you don't want students to have phones in the classroom or computers in the classroom because they get distracted. If they're getting distracted, the tool is not focusing the student the way it should. So we're going to go to the second question. There's 3 questions for each E. Does the technology motivate students to start the learning process? Remember, we're talking about learning, not teaching. And so the tool should motivate the students to want to learn more. And the third question is, does the technology cause a shift in the behavior of the students where they move from passive to active social learners? This is co-use or co-engagement. And I know so many times that I've seen teachers give students like worksheets to do on the computer. That doesn't have any co-use. The students need to be talking to each other and communicating in English, we hope, with each other for co-use. So some engagement ideas are turn and talk. So after the students do something on the technology, they turn to their partner and talk. Another idea is a think aloud, where you look at the script on the computer and you talk about it and you think aloud about what you understand and what you don't understand. The third engagement idea is modeling. Teachers doing a good job of modeling. I have to tell you, sometimes I teach a class and I do the whole class and I get done and the students don't know what I'm talking about because I didn't model well. So if you model the use of the technology, you model how to get in there, what to do, then they have a better chance of being successful. The fourth thing you can do with engagement is to have students paraphrase what they're learning. If they're doing a reading on the internet, have them paraphrase to a partner or the teacher or a group what they're learning. You can also use graphic organizers, and you can have students predict. Now, I want to show you that I have this cheat sheet here. Hold on, because all of this is a lot to know. But I have this little cheat sheet right here, and it brings up a Google Doc. And what's really nice about this is you see how I've X'd in each of the tools here. So if you want to know modeling engagement, you just click here. You'll actually get a whole description of what modeling is, how to use modeling, and then you can see here that it is actually an engagement tool. And so we've gone through all these things that I'm going to go through very quickly today, and we've just indicated on here whether it does, which E it does. Some of them do all 3 E's, some of them only do 1 or 2, but this is a very useful tool for you. It's called the cheat sheet. That's what we call it, because this way you have more chances of using it. So it's right here. This is the URL. If you want to, Dion, maybe you can put the URL into the chat box. It's bit.ly/c sheet 2022 for cheat sheet 2022. And it will actually help you make sure that you use all 3 of these E's. I'll wait a minute for her to be able to put that in there. And if you have a phone with a camera, you can always scan the QR code. But I know on Zoom, sometimes people don't have that. And I know that there's an audience out there, so. Shall I go on?
Yes.
Okay. Let me go back to where I was. I just didn't want you to think there's so much going on, but all of this is described in the cheat sheet. So the second E is enhancement. So that we have 3 questions for enhancement. Does the technology tool aid students in developing or demonstrating a more sophisticated understanding of the concept? So this is content. This is not you giving the students content, but the students learning the content online by themselves and learning how to develop a more sophisticated understanding. Second question, does the technology create scaffolds to make it easier to understand concepts or ideas? I don't know if you're aware of the Microsoft has the screen reader. that's built into a lot of tools. That's an actually nice idea for scaffolding information. If people are having a hard time reading it, they can listen to it. The third one is, does the technology create paths for students to demonstrate their understanding of the learning goals in a way that they could not with traditional tools? So this is looking at innovation with the tool, the tool itself that wouldn't work with pen and paper. For example, if you wanted to have a student do a writing and then record a digital story of their process, you could not do that on pen and paper. You need to use a technology tool. So that would be an enhancement. So some things that you can do for enhancement are turn and talk, turn and teach, where you have a student turn to a partner and teach them something. That's a lot of fun, and it's really a good way to demonstrate learning. Again, graphic organizers. Have you heard of exit tickets before? This is where the students reflect on their learning before they walk out the door. It might be a Google form that they fill out about what they learned for the day, or it could be just they write it on a piece of paper and put it in a box for you to read later. Sequencing and structuring content, so flowcharts and understanding timelines would fit in here. Differentiated instruction, where everybody can learn at the pace that they need to learn. And the last one is metacognitive strategies, where we make our cognition open so people can see how we're thinking. So the last E is extension. So there's, again, 3 questions as for each E. Does the technology create opportunities for students to learn outside of their typical school day? So do they take the learning outside of the classroom? That's very important for extension. Does the technology create a bridge between school learning and everyday life experiences? Because what we really want students to learn is how to learn. And if they can figure out how to learn on their own, then they get better at it. And the last question is, does the technology allow students to build skills that they can use in their everyday life? And this is digital literacy. Some extension ideas are having students discuss real world issues, capturing daily experiences. I did this for a very beginning English class once, where I had the students take a picture on their cell phone of their entire day. And then they brought the pictures back and we posted them on a bulletin board, an electronic bulletin board like Padlet, or even in Canvas you could do this. And students talked about the pictures that they had taken. It was really a wonderful way to get them interacting with English in a positive way. Big picture perspective, so that students can see what the big picture is before they start with the minutia. You can facilitate collaboration, curation skills, organization skills, and design and deliver support. So all of these are ideas for extension. There's more ideas here. Do you know about distributed space practice? This is where you learn something and then maybe the next day you review it again and you see how much is retained. And then maybe the next day you review it even again, so that you're not just teaching it one time and then expecting students to learn it, but you're using it every day in instruction so that it becomes incorporated into them. Expand online writing. You know, the 5-paragraph essay is a great skill, but nowadays we have to write blogs. We have to write for social media. We have to learn how to write for the different aspects of writing that we have, and more with our online writing. Inquiry-based instructions, where students come to class with questions